Hello everybody, welcome back to this channel where we cover everybody's favorite lore content, everyone's favorite lore from all sorts of games, but so far we've just been doing World of Warcraft because that's currently what I'm obsessed with, but I will be covering a bunch more in the very near future, but for now, this is another episode of our World of Warcraft lore. Like I've said in my previous videos, I am referencing this Reddit document somebody put together of all of the in-game lore that we come across through questing and stuff. So there's different chapters in this Google Doc, and currently we're covering chapter 1, Mythos, but these last couple pages is, we're going to wrap that up in today's episode, so we'll see how it goes. And as always, please leave me a comment. Let me know how you found this channel, and I'm drinking a bit of tea, so if you're just relaxing, make a nice warm cozy beverage or something. But if you don't want to do that, don't do it. I'm not pressuring you. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I hope you enjoy this video regardless. And yeah, leave me a comment if you'd like. If not, let's just go. So this is going to be the Sundering of the World History of Warcraft. Knowing that the well's destruction would prevent him from ever wielding magic again, Illidan selfishly abandoned the group and set out to warn the Highborn of Malfurion's plan. Due to the insanity brought on by his addiction and the stinging resentment towards his brother's affair with Tyrande, Illidan felt no remorse at betraying Malfurion and siding with Azshara and her ilk. Above all else, Illidan vowed to protect the well's power by any means necessary. Heartbroken by his brother's departure, Malfurion led his companions into the heart of Azshara's temple. Yet as they stormed into the main audience chamber, they found the Highborn in the midst of their final dark incantation. The communal spell created an unstable vortex of power within the well's turbulent depths. As Sargeras's ominous shadow grew ever closer to the surface, Malfurion and his allies rushed to attack. Azshara, having received Illidan's warning, was more than prepared for them. Nearly all of Malfurion's followers fell before the Mad Queen's powers. Tyrande, attempting to attack Azshara from behind, was caught off guard by the Queen's Highborn's guardsmen. Though she vanquished the guardsmen, Tyrande suffered grievous wounds at their hands. When Malfurion saw his love fall, he went into a murderous rage and resolved to end Azshara's life. As the battle raged inside and outside of the temple, Illidan appeared from the shadows near the shores of the Great Well, producing a set of specially crafted vials. Illidan knelt and filled each with the well's shimmering waters. Convinced that the demons crushed the Night Elf civilization, he planned to steal the sacred waters and keep their energies for himself. The ensuing battle between Malfurion and Azshara threw the Highborn's carefully crafted spellwork into chaos. The unstable vortex within the well's depths exploded and ignited a catastrophic chain of events that would sunder the world forever. The massive explosion rocked the temple to its foundations and sent massive quakes ripping through the tortured earth. As the horrific battle between the Legion and the Night Elves' allies raged around and above the ruined capital city, the surging well of eternity buckled in upon itself and collapsed. The resultant catastrophic explosion shattered the earth and blotted out the skies. As the aftershocks from the well's implosion rattled the bones of the world, the seas rushed in to fill the gaping wound left in the earth. Nearly 80% of Kalimdor's landmass had been blasted apart, leaving only a handful of separate continents surrounding the new raging sea. At the center of the new sea, where the Well of Eternity once stood, was a tumultuous storm of tidal fury and chaotic energies. This terrible scar, known as the Maelstrom, would never cease its furious spinning. It would remain a constant reminder of the terrible catastrophe and the utopian era that had been lost forever. Somehow, against all odds, Queen Azshara and her Highborn elite managed to survive the ordeal. Tortured and twisted by the powers they had released, Azshara and her followers were dragged down beneath the raging seas by the well's implosion. Cursed, transformed, they took on new shapes and became the hateful serpentine naga. Azshara herself expanded with hate and rage, becoming a massive monstrosity, reflecting the wickedness and malice that had always hidden within her core. There, at the bottom of the Maelstrom, the Naga built for themselves a new city, Nazjatar, from which they would rebuild their power. It would take over 10,000 years before the Naga would reveal their existence to the surface world. Mount Hyjal and Illidan's gift, Duskwood, Stormwind, the Barrens, Darkshore. The few night elves that survived the horrific explosion rallied together on crudely made crafts and slowly made their way to the only landmass in sight. Somehow, by the grace of Elune, Malfurion, Tyrande, and Cenarius had survived the Great Sundering. The weary heroes agreed to lead their fellow survivors and establish a new home for their people. As they journeyed in silence, they surveyed the wreckage of their world and realized that their passions had wrought the destruction all around them. Though Sargeras and his legion had been ripped from the world by the well's destruction, Malfurion and his companions were left to wonder the terrible cost of victory. There were many Highborn who did survive the cataclysm unscathed. They made their way to the shores of the new land along with the other night elves. Though Malfurion mistrusted the Highborn's motivations, he was satisfied that they could cause no real mischief without the well's energies. As the weary mass of night elves landed upon the shores of the new land, they found that the holy mountain Hyjal had survived the catastrophe. Seeking to establish a new home for themselves, Malfurion and the night elves climbed the slopes of Hyjal and reached its windswept summit. As they descended into the wooden bowl nestled between the mountain's enormous peaks, they found a small, tranquil lake. To their horror, they found that the lake's waters had been fouled by magic. Illidan, having survived the sundering as well, had reached Hyjal summit before Malfurion and the night elves. His mad bid to maintain the flows of magic in the world, Illidan had poured his vials, which contained the precious waters from the Well of Eternity, into the mountain lake. The well's potent energies quickly ignited and coalesced into a new Well of Eternity. The exultant Illidan, believing that the new well was a gift to future generations, was shocked when Malfurion hunted him down. Malfurion explained to his brother that magic was innately chaotic and that its use would inevitably lead to widespread corruption and strife. Still, Illidan refused to relinquish his magical powers. Knowing full well where Illidan's ruthless schemes would eventually lead, Malfurion decided to deal with his power-crazed brother once and for all. With Cenarius' help, Malfurion sealed Illidan within a vast underground Varro prison, where he would remain chained and powerless until the end of time. To ensure his brother's containment, Malfurion empowered the young warden, Maiev Shadowsong, to be Illidan's personal jailer. Concerned that destroying the new well might bring about an even greater catastrophe, the Night Elves resolved to leave it be. However, Malfurion decided that they would never practice the arts of magic again. Under Cenarius' watchful eye, they began to study the ancient arts of Druidism that would enable them to heal the ravaged earth and regrow their beloved forests at the base of the Mount Hyjal. The World Tree and the Emerald Dream, Stormwind City, Scarlet Monastery, Darnassus. For many years, the Night Elves worked tirelessly to rebuild what they could of their ancient homeland. Leaving their broken temples and roads to be overgrown, they constructed their new homes amidst the verdant trees and shadowed hills at Hyjal's base. In time, the dragons that had survived the Great Sundering came forth from their secret abodes. Alexstrasza the Red, Ysera the Green, and Nozdormu the Bronze descended upon the druids' tranquil glades and surveyed the fruits of the Night Elves' labor. Malfurion, who had become Archdruid of immense power, greeted the mighty dragons and told them about the creation of the new Well of Eternity. The great dragons were alarmed to hear the dark news and speculated that as long as the well remained, the Legion might one day return and assault the world once again. Malfurion and the three dragons made a pact to keep the well safe and ensure that the agents of the Burning Legion would never find their way back into the world. Alexstrasza the Lifebinder placed a single enchanted acorn within the heart of the Well of Eternity. The acorn, activated by the potent magical waters, sprang to life as a colossal tree. The mighty tree's roots grew from the well's waters, and its verdant canopy seemed to scrape the roof of the sky. The immense tree would be an everlasting symbol of the Night Elves' bond with nature, and its life-giving energies would extend out to heal the rest of the world over time. The Night Elves gave their world tree the new name Nordrassil, which meant Crown of the Heavens in their native tongue. Nozdormu, the Timeless, placed an enchantment upon the world tree to ensure that as long as the colossal tree stood, the Night Elves would never age or fall prey to sickness or disease. Ysera the Dreamer also placed an enchantment upon the World Tree by linking it to her own realm, the ethereal dimension known as the Emerald Dream. The Emerald Dream, a vast, ever-changing spirit world, existed outside the boundaries of the physical world. From the dream, Ysera regulated the ebb and flow of nature and the revolutionary path of the world itself. The Night Elf Druids, including Malfurion himself, were bound to the dream through the World Tree. As part of its mystical pact, the Druids agreed to sleep for centuries at a time so that their spirits could roam the infinite path of Ysera's dreamways. Though the Druids were grieved at the prospect of losing so many years of their lives to hibernation, they selflessly agreed to uphold their bargain with Ysera. Exile of the High Elves, the Barrens, Scholomance, Undercity, Darnassus. As the centuries passed, the Night Elves' new society grew strong and expanded throughout the budding forest that they came to call Ashenvale. Many of the creatures and species that were abundant before the Great Sundering, such as furbolgs and quillboars, reappeared and flourished in the land. Under the Druids' benevolent leadership, the Night Elves enjoyed an era of unprecedented peace and tranquility under the stars. However, many of the original Highborn survivors grew restless. Like Illidan before them, they fell victim to the withdrawal that came from the loss of their coveted magics. They were tempted to tap the energies of the Well of Eternity and exult in their magical practices. Dathramar the brash, outspoken leader of the Highborn, began to mock the Druids publicly, calling them cowards for refusing to wield the magic that he said was theirs by right. Malfurion and the Druids dismissed Dathramar's arguments and warned the Highborn that any use of magic would be punishable by death. In an insolent and ill-fated attempt to convince the Druids to rescind their law, Dathramar and his followers unleashed a terrible magical storm upon Ashenvale. The Druids could not bring themselves to put so many of their kin to death, so they decided to exile the reckless Highborn from their lands. Dathramar and his followers, glad to be rid of their conservative cousins at last, boarded a number of specially crafted ships and set sail upon the seas. Though none of them knew what awaited them beyond the waters of the raging Maelstrom, they were eager to establish their own homeland, where they could practice their coveted magics with impunity. The Highborn, or the Keldori, as Azshara had named them in ages past, would eventually set shore upon the eastern land men would call Lordaeron. As they planned to build their own magical kingdom, Quel'Thalas, and reject the Night Elves' precepts of moon worship and nocturnal activity, forever after, they would embrace the sun and be known only as the High Elves. Sentinels and the Long Vigil. Stranglethorn Vale, Feralas. With the departure of their wayward cousins, the Night Elves turned their attention back to the safekeeping of their enchanted homelands. The Druids, sensing that their time of hibernation was drawing near, prepared to sleep and leave their loved ones and families behind. Tyrande, who had become the High Priestess of Elune, asked her love Malfurion not to leave her for Ysera's Emerald Dream. But Malfurion, honor-bound to enter the changing dreamways, bid the priestess farewell, and swore that they would never be apart so long as they held true to their love. Left alone to protect Kalimdor from the dangers of the New World, Tyrande assembled a powerful fighting force from amongst her Night Elf sisters. The fearless, highly trained warrior women who pledged themselves to Kalimdor's defense became known as the Sentinels. Though they preferred to patrol the shadowy forests of Ashenvale on their own, they had many allies upon which they would call in times of urgency. The demigod Cenarius remained nearby in the moonglades of Mount Hyjal. His sons, known as the Keepers of the Grove, kept close watch on the Night Elves and regularly helped the Sentinels maintain peace in the land. Even Cenarius' shy daughters, the Dryads, appeared in the open with increasing frequency. The task of policing Ashenvale kept Tyrande busy, but without Malfurion at her side, she knew little joy. As the long centuries passed while the Druids slept, her fears of a second demonic invasion grew. She could not shake the unnerving feeling that the Burning Legion might still be out there, beyond the great dark of the sky, plotting its revenge upon the Night Elves in the world of Azeroth. Wrath of the Soulflayer, Stranglethorn Vale, Daenerys. The long centuries following the great sundering of the world were difficult ones for the troll race. Famine and terror were commonplace within the Broken Kingdoms. The Gurubashi trolls, driven to desperate ends, sought aid from ancient mystical forces. Though both of the troll kingdoms shared a central belief in a great pantheon of primitive gods, the Gurubashi fell under the sway of the Darkest One. Hakkar the Soulflayer, a vile, bloodthirsty spirit, heard the trolls' call and decided to aid them. Hakkar gave his secrets of blood to the Gurubashi and helped them extend their civilization across most of Stranglethorn Vale and certain islands of the South Seas. Though he brought them great power, Hakkar wanted more and more for his efforts. The bloodthirsty god demanded souls be sacrificed to him daily. He dreamed of gaining access to the physical world so he could devour the blood of all mortal creatures. In the time, the Gurubashi realized what kinds of creatures they have courted with and turned against him. The strongest tribes rose up against Hakkar and his loyal priests. The terrible war that ensued between Hakkar's followers and the rest of the Gurubashi tribes is spoken of only in whispers. The budding empire was shattered by the magic unleashing between the angry gods and his rebel children. Just as the battle seemed the most hopeless, the trolls succeeded in destroying Hakkar's avatar and banishing him from the world. Even his Atalai priests were eventually driven from the capital of Zul'Gurub and forced to survive in the uncharted swamplands to the north. Within those shadowy fens, they built a great temple to their fallen god, Atal Hakkar, where they could continue to do their master's work. The rest of the Gurubashi tribes went their separate ways after the Great Civil War had left their land in ruins. The Skull Splitter, Blood Scalp, and Darkspear tribes set off to claim their own lands within the vast jungles of Stranglethorn. Though a fragile peace had settled over the broken empire, some spoke of a prophecy that Hakkar would one day be reborn into the world, and on that day he would consume it whole. And that wraps up Chapter 1 of the lore known as the Mythos. So this is a lot of, pre-game stuff. A lot of stuff that I honestly didn't really know, which is pretty cool. So I hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, let me know if you like this kind of stuff, and if you like these videos, and if there's anything you'd like me to cover in particular. Of any game really, but if there's anything specifically, just leave me a comment. I will leave you to some flame noises and some soft wind noises, and I hope you enjoy, and thank you for being here. Goodbye, and see you next time.